this a political problem for her if she runs for president?
It could be a political problem. Look, he could be a political problem.
Bill Clinton with the president of Harvard, who you know, that is Summers, Larry Summers, whatever his name is, and all of the other people that he spent time with. Jeffrey Epstein.
A law was passed in Congress to require that all the files that have anything to do with them be released. And what we're seeing, I think it's fair to say, is a continuing cover-up by the Trump administration.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton just publicly accused the Trump administration of a cover-up in its handling of the Epstein files. This during a live TV interview that we're going to show you. Hillary Clinton sat down with the BBC from the Munich Security Conference, and she took aim at the president, stating that files are being, quote, slow-walked and redacted in ways that protect powerful figures and obscure full transparency. She called for the immediate release of all documents and argued that sunlight, not suppression, is the best path to accountability.
And when he lost in 2020, I think it broke something in him. I think he could not believe that he had been turned out, which is why he instigated the attack on our Capitol, why he to this day denies the facts of that election. And I don't know whether it was some psychic wound that he cannot heal, or whether he physically and mentally has become, so obsessed that he can't really live in the
law was passed in Congress to require that all the files that have anything to do with them be released. And what we're seeing, I think it's fair to say, is a continuing cover-up by the Trump administration. In fact, when the Attorney General testified last week, it was quite a scene because she refused to answer questions. She diverted attention away from the matters at hand. She refused to look at the survivors. So there's something about this administration's attitude toward this, which I think really leads us to conclude they have something to hide. We don't. We have been willing to say whatever we know. We've even done it under oath.
Now, this is a damning statement, right? When you consider that her husband has found himself in hot water over his alleged ties that the Trump administration have pointed out, but yet both have came forward, unlike the president, and stated that they would testify. Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton have agreed to come forward and testify after the Trump administration spent the past few months trying to redirect the conversation towards them.
Well, we know he was on the plane, not only on the plane a couple times, multiple times. He traveled internationally with Jeffrey Epstein. And he was on the plane called the Lolita Express because it supposedly had a bed in there where Jeffrey Epstein had young girls. He has been a friend of his, a continuing friend of his for years and years. Contrast that with Donald Trump, who hasn't spoken to him in many years, over a decade, after he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago for bad behavior. So that's the difference there. And I think Americans see the two-tier justice system. But, we don't know. They're saying Clinton has not been to his private island, but he has traveled all over the world with Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know why A.G. Garland and the Justice Department are so quiet on this tonight. They're out there labeling parents domestic terrorists, yet they're saying nothing about this. And these documents were so slow to come out. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar business in this country, and Jeffrey Epstein is dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for 20 years where she belongs. And if people in that report are still fighting to keep their names private, Sean, they have no legal basis to do so unless they're a child, a victim, or a cooperating defendant by some chance against some potential case against Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think Mark Garagos, as a great criminal defense attorney, will back that up as well.
Now, Trump's recurrent response to Epstein-related questions has been to label criticism as politically motivated and to insist that any allegations amount to a hoax targeting him. But that also runs contrary to statements from him and his administration in the past. No, I'm not talking about them stating they would release all the files, but that the Clintons should be the ones facing questions, right? Despite the fact that the president is named in the files more than anyone else.
They're both very good.
Mr. President.
The two Kevins, very good.
Mr. President, is Vice President Vance hosting a gathering this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
Is he working on what?
Is he hosting some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
I don't know. I could ask you that question. I don't know of it, but I think here's the man right here.
I saw it reported today, and it's completely fake news. We're not meeting to talk about the Epstein situation, and I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
Look, the whole thing is a hoax. It's put out by the Democrats because we've had the most successful 6 months in the history of our country. And that's just a way of trying to divert attention to something that's total bullshit. Okay?
The Clintons are now saying, okay, they will testify and want it publicly televised.
Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is going on the attack against House Oversight Chair James Comer. Clinton demanding a public hearing as part of the Oversight Committee's probe into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Clinton writing on X, "If you want this fight, James Comer, let's have it in public. You love to talk about transparency. There's nothing more transparent than a public hearing. Cameras on. We'll be there."
And listen, as we continue to reiterate on this network, whoever is found of any wrongdoing, regardless of their political affiliation, who gives a shite? They should be prosecuted. But it does seem like this is only coming from one side, right? Well, the MAGA contingent are shouting, yeah, what about Bill? What about Bill?
Now you care about Epstein.
Well,
Trump's fine under Epstein.
I was obviously very careful to say that. I am not accusing the president of doing anything. I'm saying that he has an Epstein files problem and he knows it.
No one has a problem more than the Clintons.
Who cares? Don't elect Bill Clinton.
You brought it up. I don't care. You
don't
brought
vote
it up.
for Bill Clinton. Bill, if you're going to run, don't do it.
You brought it up.
Those on the left who actually want justice for survivors are saying, okay, sure. And Trump also, right? He should answer to questions. That's met with crickets and excuses.
Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized to President Trump? All of you. I find it interesting that she keeps going after President Trump, the greatest president in American history. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. He is the most transparent president in the nation's history. Donald Trump, the Dow right now is over. The Dow is over 50,000.
And that's where their entire narrative falls apart, right? The public framing from the Trump side remains rooted in denial and deflection, telling their supporters that the controversy is actually manufactured distraction, even as official processes proceed. And there are firings and resignations happening and even attempts at prosecution across the world as a result. And his messaging couldn't be further from what the American people are demanding. They want transparency. They don't want to move on.
And that remains true. And this call, if it did happen, corroborates exactly what President Trump has said from the beginning. And I'm sure many of you, when you read that alleged FBI report, probably thought to yourself, wow, this really cracks our narrative that we've been trying to push about this president for many years. So we're moving on from that. Reagan.
We as a nation have an opportunity to send a strong message that we will not protect people who victimize children, that we will stand up for what is right, despite what our politics are, that we will cross the aisle, and that we will stand behind survivors for justice. We keep hearing our press secretary and our Department of Justice and other government officials saying they're moving on from this. I wish that we could. I met Epstein and Maxwell when I was 21 years old. I'm nearly 53 now. We cannot move on as survivors of this crime and as citizens of this nation without changing this narrative. So I ask you all to stand behind us and demand accountability for our government, because we certainly are going to.
And when the AG testified to answer to questions regarding the lack of transparency, she screamed about the Dow while survivors were forced to sit and listen to that utter tripe.
Attorney General Bondi didn't seem to directly answer that question. And what do you make of what she did say?
She didn't answer anything. She came here just ready to talk about the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ, which seems kind of crazy to me.
And the what about her email sequel, right? What about Bill? Well, Hillary Clinton's repeated insistence that she and her husband want the files fully released and that they are willing to answer under oath and even want it televised reframes the fight from he said, she said to demands for public process and opacity. That reframing runs counter to the narrative that the whole issue is a hoax orchestrated by Democrats, which Trump continues to say, regardless of how hurtful and insulting it is to victims of these horrific crimes.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.